Hello everyone, I am back with this week's chapter of Healing the Dark. This is chapter 20 by Anxious Astronaut 18, as always. Um, so before we begin, as always, trigger warning for the whole series of self-harm. Uh, and the trigger warning from the author is themes of self-harm, anxiety, and depression are expressed within the story. Trigger warning, please do not read if these themes upset you. Trigger warning. And these are the times where that will be happening in this fanfiction. And just a quick note, the final one goes from the 13 something minutes straight to the end of the fanfiction. So if you skip that part, you're skipping straight into the outro. So I don't know, that just seemed like something I should inform you of. But I hope you guys enjoy, and on with the fanfiction. Nico's POV. Nico woke up feeling safer than ever before. He wanted to go back to bed and started snuggling back into his pillow. Only then did he realize it wasn't a pillow. He opened his eyes to find his head on a Camp Half-Blood t-shirt, and under that he could feel a muscular chest. He looked up and found himself trapped in Will Solace's blue orbs. Will smiled at him. "Good morning." Nico smiled and mumbled a response back into Will's chest. He merely settled more comfortably on Will's chest. He then realized what he was doing. His eyes shot open, and he struggled away from the son of Apollo, and he accidentally fell off the bed. He hit the ground hard. "Nico?" he heard Will call out. He put his knees on either side of Nico's body. "Are you okay?" Nico nodded and regretted it. His head was pounding. He stayed on the floor with Will hovering above him for about 10 minutes as the pain started to recede. He opened his eyes and found that his vision was not laced with black. He propped himself up and saw the position he and Will had taken. If someone were to walk in, Will and Nico would look very compromising. And because the Fates loved to screw with Nico, walk in someone did. The cabin door flew open and a figure was outlined in sunlight. "Hey Nico, are you awake?" "Oh my god." Jason's face was a mixture of horror and shock. He then flushed a deep red. I'll just, I'll just leave you guys alone." He quickly closed the door. Nico groaned and quickly got back to his feet. He pushed the cabin door open and followed after Jason. "Jason, wait! That wasn't what you thought it was." Jason stopped. He turned to face Nico. His face was still red with embarrassment. "What it looked like is Will was there for more than just watching you." Jason's face took one of concern as he tried to put his hands on Nico's shoulders. "Are you okay?" Nico shrugged his hand off. "Did he try to take advantage of you?" "Oh my gods, no!" "Because I swear if he did—" "Gods, Jason, will you just listen to me?" Jason lapsed into silence. "I fell, and Will was just making sure I was okay." The son of Jupiter still looked wary. "Are you sure you aren't lying to me?" Jason asked. "Jason, I'm fine. My dignity is intact, or whatever. He was just making sure I was okay." Jason said nothing in response to Nico, so Nico rolled his eyes, turning around. "I'm getting changed." "I'm coming with you," Jason added. The two boys headed back to the Hades cabin. Nico saw that Will was standing on the front porch, his hands behind his head, scratching it nervously. "Hey, Jason, that wasn't what it—" He was cut off by Jason holding a hand up. "If you ever try to take advantage of him—" "Jason!" Nico's face was reddening. "Or hurt him, I will end you," Jason threatened. "Nothing happened. Holy Hera!" Nico glared at Jason. Will looked a little apprehensive of the son of Jupiter, but Jason merely looked away from him and towards Nico, smiling cheerfully. "So, you ready for breakfast?" The next week passed almost without great incident. Nico trained all day and built his strength up so he could start searching for Leo and Calypso again. Although Will hadn't brought it up again, no doubt wanting to avoid upsetting Nico, the son of Hades had considered the healer's proposition. Instead of getting a notebook, however, he had purchased a sketchbook from the camp store. He thought that writing his experiences would be too painful, so he decided to sketch them instead. Nico found that he was a relatively good artist. Using only his memory, he began sketching the images that plagued his mind. While Will stayed with him in the Hades cabin at night, giving him the promised sleeping draughts, nightmares still bled through. After Will would calm him down and prevent him from hurting himself, Nico would get his sketchbook and draw out what he had seen. Will had noticed this, but was true to his word, giving the son of Hades space. The sleeping potions did help, so Nico wasn't always terrified when he woke up. He actually started talking to Will about the basics of what happened to him. Nico had grown to trust the healer. His feelings began to bloom for Will as well, though he kept that under the radar because he still didn't know how Will felt about him. Nico was thinking about the son of Apollo during lunch that afternoon. It started as a normal day at camp. Jason and Percy were fighting over who was more powerful. The whole day and the previous night, Jason and Percy had been using their powers against the other. Jason had been doused with water more times than he cared to admit, and Percy's clothing was singed. Nico had to admit it was childish, but it was fun to watch. Percy had sat down talking to him about how he was more attractive than Jason. Nico tried to tune this out, thinking about a different blonde that he found attractive. When a flash of lightning hit the bench inches away from Nico, without warning, Nico was taken back to a memory. He was chasing Bianca around a couch in a luxury hotel. He noticed his father gesturing widely as he explained something to his mother. His mother got up to walk away, but he was too intent on chasing his sister to care. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He stopped, and so did Bianca. He smelled ozone in the air, and his father screamed, "No!" and launched towards him and Bianca, encasing them in a black wall of energy. Nico shielded his eyes with his arms as a bright light filled the room and a blast rocked the building. When the light had stopped, the debris settled. Nico looked up to find there was a circle around him and Bianca where none of the debris had fallen in. He noticed his father was off in the distance holding something in his arms. He and Bianca inched forward to see what it was. He felt himself gasp as he realized who it was. It was his mama. He felt a sob build in his throat. He tore himself out of the memory to find that no time had passed. Percy stood up, looking off in the distance, yelling something, but it was muted. Nico was breathing heavily, his ears ringing as if he had been exposed to an explosion. He turned away from the table. Jason was running up to him, but he was in slow motion. Nico started shaking as he realized what had happened. It was the first full memory he had gained back after being dipped in the Lethe when he was a child. Zeus had tried to kill him! He looked up to find Percy's face tight with alarm. His lips were moving in a word Nico recognized. Will. Jason's face suddenly loomed in front of Nico. Suddenly he was a little kid again, and Zeus was coming to get him. A hand touched his shoulder, but Nico wrenched it away. No, nobody was going to get to him. "Go away!" he screamed. There was another hand on his shoulder. Nico's body acted of its own accord, taking cues from his panic, and sent dark energy from him and through the person touching him. They were thrown back. He crouched down, his head in his hands. He tried to block out the memories, to rip them from his head. He tried to control his breathing, but it wasn't working. Suddenly there were hands pulling his. Will Solis's face showed up in front of him. He was saying something to Nico, who couldn't hear him, but it didn't matter, because Will's presence was all he needed. He calmed Nico down. The memory started to fade as he came out of his panic attack. The voices telling him that he should have died in the attack from Zeus faded and were just background noise. Will's voice finally broke through. "Nico, Nico, it's okay. Just focus on my voice." Will brought his hands up to Nico's shoulders. Nico saw red on it. He grabbed Will's arm before he could touch him and turned it over. Blood was gushing from a scrape along his arm, one that hadn't been there earlier. Will took his arm back. "Nico, it's fine. I'm fine." That's when Nico realized that Will had been the one to put his hand on his shoulder. Nico had sent a dark energy and thrown him off. He had hurt Will. How could he hurt Will? He started breathing heavily again, guilt flooding through him. "I hurt you," Nico whispered, looking at his hands. "Nico, look at me. You didn't hurt me. I'm fine." He went to put his hands on Nico, but Nico flinched back. He got to his feet, and Will got up too. He held out his hand, trying to show Nico that he wasn't going to hurt him. Nico made the decision to run, and Will saw that on his face. He reached out, saying "No!" but Nico was already gone. The crowd that had surrounded the two boys parted as Nico ran through. He sprinted across the camp lawn, tears threatening his eyes. He ran to his cabin and slammed against the door, fumbling with the knob. For some reason, it wasn't opening. Nico started to panic and tried harder to get inside. Using his shoulder, he forced the door open and shut it behind him. He grabbed a hidden blade. He wanted to hurt himself. He wanted to feel the blade tear into his skin. But he knew if he did, Will would be disappointed. He started pacing, trying to decide what to do. He lurched for his sketchbook and flipped it open on his bunk. He sat on the floor and started sketching the hotel debris as he remembered it. He heard a pounding on the door. He gripped the blade more tightly. "Go away!" His voice sounded raw with grief. He heard the door swing slowly open. "No!" he yelled, throwing his head into his arms so whoever was coming in wouldn't see him like this. "Leave me alone!" He felt a presence standing behind him. Will's voice filled the room. "Nico, are you okay?" He felt Will crouch down next to him. Will knew better than to touch him at times like this. "Leave me alone," Nico said into his arms. "We just want to make sure you're okay." "We?" Nico thought. He raised his head a little and turned around to see that Percy and Jason had come in with Will. Both of their faces were lined with worry. Nico buried his face in his arms. Will's voice broke through again. "Can I see your sketchbook? Then maybe we can talk about what happened." Nico didn't say anything, but Will took it as a response. He slid the book out from Nico's arms and looked at it. He dropped it, exposing a different page. Percy gasped. "Is that where I think it is? Nico, is that—" Nico looked up and saw Percy's horrified face. He nodded slowly. Percy took the sketchbook and began flipping through the pages. They were filled with images of Tartarus. What might have been meaningless landscapes to Will and Jason was recognized by Percy. He knew every part of Tartarus, just like Nico. When an image of Damascus's hut showed up and Percy let the book fall from his hands, he sat down on the floor and put his head in his hands. "You see it every night too, don't you, Percy?" Nico asked, and Percy nodded. "I didn't think I would ever see that place besides memories. But what you drew, that is Tartarus." The words hung in the air, and Jason put his hand on Percy's shoulder. They all stayed silent for a few moments before Will broke it. "What happened, Nico? What did you see?" Nico shook his head and pointed to the sketchbook. Will picked it up and sat down beside Nico. He flipped to the most recent page and looked at it. He couldn't figure out what it was, but Percy, who had emerged from his hands, made a noise of recognition. He slid over to Will's other side, looking at the page. "Is that the hotel?" Nico looked at Percy warily. "How'd you know about that?" Percy looked sheepish. "A while back I had a dream, and I watched as your father showed you this vision, but why did you react the way you did? You've seen this before." "I experienced the memory." Percy looked confused. "My memories that were wiped in the Lethe are starting to come back, and I relived that experience." Percy looked at Nico in sorrow. Will and Jason looked confused. "What are you talking about?" A memory got triggered for Nico. "By what, my lightning?" Nico nodded at Jason's question. "What happened?" Will asked again. Percy moved to explain. "No," Nico interrupted. "Nico, we need to know what happened," Will informed. Nico sighed, regretting what he was about to do. "I'll tell you." Will looked shocked, and for good reason. Nico had rarely talked about any of his flashbacks or nightmares. This was a big step for Nico. Not only was he opening up to Will, but also to Jason and Percy. All three boys stood up straighter as Nico began explaining what happened. All three demigods sat in silence, absorbing Nico's words. Their faces changed from confusion to alarm, to sorrow and horror. When he was finishing speaking, Jason looked murderous. "My father did this to you? He killed your mother?" Nico nodded sadly. Will noticed and grabbed his hand. Jason noticed and looked at Nico's hand. "Nico, is that blood?" He looked down at the hand that was still gripping the knife. Shist. He had forgotten he was holding it and had gripped it tightly for his entire story. He opened his palm, revealing the blade. Will sucked in a breath and plucked the blade out of Nico's hand, giving Nico a disappointed and sad look. He got up and started to the bathroom to get a bandage. Nico scrambled after him. No, wait, Will, I didn't mean to. He stepped in front of Will. I really didn't mean to. It was an accident. But Will had sidestepped him and walked into the bathroom. Will didn't believe him. He returned with rubbing alcohol and white bandage. He wouldn't meet Nico's eyes as he sat on the bed and got on his knees in front of Nico. Nico hissed as the alcohol stung his skin, but Will didn't apologize like he usually did. He wrapped the bandage tightly around Nico's hand and scrubbed the rest of the blood away. He got up to store his stuff and emerged, still not meeting Nico's eyes. It was an accident, but Will cut Nico off, his eyes finally looking up. Nico saw they were laced with disappointment. I thought we agreed that you wouldn't do that anymore. You said you wouldn't. Will's voice was rising and falling with emotion. I didn't mean to. If you wanted to hurt yourself, you should have waited for me so I could have helped you to not. Will's eyes were flashing with guilt as if he thought it was his fault Nico had hurt himself. I didn't mean, but you did. You cut yourself, and you've been so good. I thought I had helped you. What possessed you to hurt your... Anger flashed inside Nico. It was an accident. But when I got back here and I realized I had hurt you, I wanted to hurt myself because I hurt you. Will bit his lip. It was an accident. I still caused you harm, Will. That's why I wanted to hurt myself. Nico, you don't need to hurt yourself because if you accidentally hurt me, the only thing that really hurts is you wanted to hurt yourself because of me. Nico walked away from Will, leaving the son of Apollo's hand hovering midair. Well, that makes me feel loads better. Nico... He moved to get on the other side of Nico so he could see his face. No! Nico whipped around. I don't want to cause you any more pain, so can you just leave? Will didn't budge. Nico looked around the room. Jason and Percy were still there. Percy didn't know about his self-harm. All of you, get out! Nico, we aren't leaving, Will said. This launched Nico into action. Fine, fine! He grabbed his sword and his already packed backpack. He had been planning to search for Leo that night. I'll leave then. Maybe then I won't cause you as much harm. He backed into the shadow-filled corner of the room. If I'm gone, you won't have to worry about me anymore. Will's face dropped into one of horror as he realized what Nico was about to do. He reached out to Nico screaming, Nico! But Nico had already been whisked away. That was Healing the Dark, Chapter 20, by Anxious Astronaut 18. I'm thinking I'll probably have the CapCut app stuff, probably for the remainder of this series, honestly. I tried for very long to try to get the website working. It just isn't working for me. It might go back, but I doubt it'll be within this series. But I hope you guys enjoyed this fanfiction. I got real off topic for one sec. I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. I'm very sorry for the insane cliffhanger. If you want to read this yourself, it is on fanfiction.net. Once again, by Anxious Astronaut 18. So, sorry. However, I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you guys are very excited for Chapter 21 next week. Bye! Sorry, almost forgot. As always, don't forget to like, share with all of your Percy Jackson and Solangelo obsessed friends. Comment and subscribe, because if you like this, you'll probably like most of my other stuff. And don't forget to have a great day, week, and all that other stuff. So now, goodbye.